Merry Christmas, Bears fans. And by Merry Christmas, I mean welcome back to another episode. We are on episode 24. It's a great day to be a Bears fan. We don't get many of these, so we got to take what we can get, and we will definitely dive into what exactly I'm talking about here later. To tease the rest of the episode, we have a new champion in the college football landscape. Ohio State versus Notre Dame. We'll dive into that game. NFL playoffs still going on. We're getting a more and more clear picture of who we might see in the Super Bowl, and there's a lot happening in the NFL landscape as far as coaches go. So, as usual, we've got a lot to talk about in today's episode. Sean, let's get ready to roll.
Sounds great.
Yeah, it's a big day. It's not too often I break out the old school B Bears hat, but just with what Ben Johnson was wearing when he got to Chicago, I felt like it was only right that I had to match him. So looks like you are celebrating accordingly as well, but we'll get into all that stuff later. But first off is the college football playoff. College football season has come to an end. Not surprisingly, Ohio State was able to beat Notre Dame in a game that got ugly really fast, yet ended up being closer than it seemed. What were your thoughts on the national championship game? I'm going to be honest with you. I think it was maybe 28-7 at one point. I turned it off then.
Oh, interesting. I was ready to write off Notre Dame at that point, but there was also nothing else on TV. So I was like, whatever, I'm just going to watch the rest of this game. I was going to post a picture of a sad Notre Dame fan just because me being a Miami fan, I do shit like that. Glad I didn't because Notre Dame came back and made it interesting. But I mean, the box score was about as close as I expected it to be. If I would have projected it, I probably would have said Ohio State by like 10-ish, somewhere in that range. Listen, I picked Ohio State to win it all to begin the year. They won it all. They had a little bit of a shaky window there towards the end of the season, but at the end of the day, they proved they were the best team in college football, and I think rightfully so, honestly.
Yeah, they were really just moving the ball offensively. Notre Dame couldn't do much to slow down their offense. I mean, early on, like Notre Dame didn't play that bad. They just weren't getting stops defensively, and next thing you know, Ohio State explodes for 21 points in the second quarter, and then they had that swing, I think, where they scored on consecutive drives to end the quarter and then got the ball back to start the second half. And I believe they got points on that first drive in the second half too. And it was at that point where you were just kind of like, okay, this is going how most people thought it would. But Notre Dame hung in there. They played tough, ended up losing by 11, which isn't bad, but game never really felt that close. I did think that Notre Dame had an interesting game plan. I know Jeremiah Love was hurt, but they've had a pretty good run game all playoff, with or without him. And to see them have Riley Leonard get 17 carries and then give their running backs a total combined 7 carries after that, I just thought that was kind of interesting. I mean, I know when you get down big, fast, like you can't exactly just run the ball when you want to, but at the same time too, you know, you gotta mix it up. And also with running Leonard that much, and we saw it even evidently on the first drive of the game, is he was just going to get exhausted. But he hung in there, had 40 yards on 17 carries and a touchdown, and then threw 2 more touchdowns. So, I mean, based on the way he's played this year, you can't really ask for much more than him. That was a pretty good game from him. But I mean, Ohio State was just rock solid from the beginning, and their offense was moving. They were running the ball well. Quinshon Judkins probably shot up his draft stock. If people weren't high on him already, they're going to be high on him now. Yeah. And yeah, they just did whatever they want. Will Howard was efficient. I don't think he had an incompletion until late in the second and ended up winning MVP, I believe. So Yeah, I guess just kind of the result that I expected and a lot of people expected, but props to Notre Dame, I guess, for keeping it close in the end.
Yeah, and honestly, man, like Ohio State's college football playoff run was also really impressive. Like they had to play Tennessee in the first round, which I mean, Tennessee's. I think they could have
Stinks.
been a fringe playoff team this year, but
Way
like
to play
still,
Tennessee in the cold.
yeah, they beat they beat the shit out of Tennessee 42-17. They went and beat the shit out of Oregon. It ended up being 41-21, but it was not even that close. Uh, they beat Texas by 2 touchdowns, and then they go and beat Notre Dame by double digits. So like they had a hell of a postseason this year. And I think that's kind of just what separated them from a lot of these other teams because Notre Dame, I mean, they had a pretty good run. They beat Indiana in the first round. After that, they played Georgia,
Georgia.
who they beat 23-10. They beat. I think Penn State was probably their best win all playoffs. Who they beat by a field goal. So as far as
That game
Riley
was
Leonard goes,
nuts
man,
too.
it was a good game. As far as Riley Leonard and rushing the ball 17 times, I don't know what the hell they were doing there. Like, I don't know if they were just trying to put out something different than what Ohio State would have seen on tape or what the game plan was there, but I was pretty confused by that too, especially because you could tell he was either gassed or hurt. I couldn't tell which one
Yeah.
it was, but he was struggling.
Yeah. I mean, he's a runner. That's part of his game, and that's part of their typical like installment in their offense. But just for them to completely like abandon running backs as a whole throughout the game, I just thought was kind of risky. But I mean, it's the last game of the year, so I guess if you want to put it in Riley Leonard's hands because you think he gives you the best chance, whether it's on the ground or through the air, by any means, I guess go for it. But um,
Yeah.
yeah, just kind of I don't know, seemed to not work for them. He was good at getting first downs and stuff in short yardages situations when he needed to with his legs, but you could tell it was weighing on him too.
Yeah, I mean, the game before against Penn State, he did carry the ball 18 times. I don't think I even realized that. He carried the ball 18 times for 35 yards. Other than that, I mean, for the most part, he's averaging like 9 or 10 carries per game. So they almost doubled that in the last 2 games of their season. So I don't know. They know a lot more than we do. I'm sure there's a reason for it, but it was just kind of confusing watching
No,
it
they
from afar.
don't. Come on.
supposedly,
They're not
supposedly they do.
podcasters.
Um, let's talk about NFL playoffs. Sean, I'll let you kind of take the reins here out the gates.
Yeah, what do you want to talk about? What's going on?
I mean, the Chiefs continue to win games. They beat the Texans. Let's
Yeah,
start
yeah,
there.
they did. Uh, Game I didn't really care for too much, but was closer than I thought it was going to be. Um, Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs are inevitable in the divisional round. I think at this rate, you might as well just give them a bye to the conference championship. But, the Texans hung in there. They played well, better than I thought they would. I was pretty low on the Texans just given their season this year and the way that Stroud was not playing like he played the year before. But he ended up having a good game. You can't put that blame on him at all from this one. A lot of questionable calls in this game. Um, and I don't know how it works, if it's already been assessed, if it hasn't been assessed, but I feel like there will be a lot of fines coming the Texans' way because I swear, and maybe it was just the stuff that I saw and it was very little, but I feel like there were a few clips in the locker room where they were like, yeah, it was hard to beat the Chiefs and beat the refs, which I mean, with some of those calls and some of those hits that Mahomes took and the flopping and stuff, totally justifiable to be upset about the refs. But NFL doesn't like when you call people out and call it how you see it. So I don't know if it's already happened or if it can't happen till however long, but I anticipate that Texans will be racking up some fines. Joe Mixon specifically, he wasn't holding anything back, but he never does. So
Yeah, I'm surprised he didn't get more carries. He was averaging 5 yards a carry. C.J. Stroud 7 yards a carry, so they were running the ball pretty well. They just kind of abandoned the run after a little while. Travis Kelce is looking like his old self. He had 7 receptions, 117 yards, and a touchdown. And Chiefs just being the Chiefs, man. There's not really too much to add to it that you didn't already talk about. So
yeah,
let's talk about. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say I kind of felt like, especially with Kelsey, like I wasn't going to be shocked if all of a sudden him and Mahomes like turned it on. Like I definitely think there was some sort of like, let's take it easy until we hit the playoffs and we can turn it up kind of
Yeah.
situation with them. And Mahomes or not Mahomes, Kelsey certainly showed that he was ready to go and when the playoff lights are shining on him. So 7 receptions, 117 yards, 1 touchdown.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I don't know the last time he had that this year.
That's the Travis Kelsey of old, man. Um,
Let's see. I'm pulling it up right now. He had one 100-yard game this season. It was
week
about middle
3.
of the season against Tampa Bay,
Oh.
and
Oh
so
wow.
he
Okay.
actually had a season high in reception yards. So
Yeah.
there you go.
Well, I'm sure we'll see more of it. Um, let's talk about hands down the most shocking game. Jaden Daniels and the Commanders pull off a massive upset with a win in Detroit. I remember when we were recording last episode, I said something along the lines of like, I'm tempted to pick the Commanders here, but I just can't get myself to do it. And I should have just done it. Literally had nothing to lose, but um, still, I still could not have imagined that happening. Jaden Daniels, you texted me and said, him and the Commanders are going to have a near perfect game for them to win this. And
And I also said they're going to need some turnovers too, and they got all that stuff right away.
yeah, yeah. And at the halftime score, I think it wasn't the halftime score like 31-21 or something crazy like that.
Yeah, it was pretty high scoring. 31 to 24,
That's insane, dude.
something like that, maybe 21. Um, no, it's 21. Sorry, I can't math right now.
Okay, yeah,
Um, yeah, so high scoring game. A lot of NFL games end in a score like that. I mean, you look at the Texans and the Chiefs, that final was 23-14. You look at the later games, that those finals 28-22, 25-27.
yeah,
So, granted, the one benefit that the Lions and Commanders had was they were playing inside. They were nice and toasty, so weren't dealing with some of these rough conditions that um, some of the other games had to deal with. But I mean, yeah, it was one of those things where it was like I could see it happening. I don't think it will. And the Commanders just came out and made a statement. Jaden Daniels played great. Um, let's see here. I'm curious how they were running the ball.
I was just like about to pull up his stat line too.
182 yards, 3 rushing touchdowns on the ground between everyone. Um, Jaden Daniels was 22 of 31 for 299 and 2 touchdowns. No picks, no sacks. So just a pretty good overall performance. Really not much else you could ask for from Washington there. And, they made Jared Goff's life hell.
Yeah,
He only got sacked twice, but 3 interceptions for him in a game. That's a lot. I don't think he had much more than that during the regular season. Um, so yeah, just kind of you know, I thought the Lions would at least win one playoff game, and then maybe we could talk about them being upset. But the fact that Washington just came in and just wiped them out was pretty crazy. I mean, minus being down in the first quarter, Washington really had their foot on the gas and were in control the whole rest of the way, and it's impressive. And it's just kind of scratching the surface on how good they can actually be.
yeah,
Um, they have a lot of money to spend this offseason. I think people are going to look at that as an opportunity for a good chance to be a contender. And Washington's going to be a place where people want to go play, which I don't think we've been able to say that for a long time. So, yeah, good for them and really good for Bears fans that the Lions lost that game.
yes, it was. Yes, they've got some. I mean, here's the thing: the Lions are also really banged up, right? Like their
For sure.
defense. Their defense, I'm pretty sure they're pulling guys off the street, right? Like construction workers just to play offensive line or defensive line, I should say. But the Commanders, they've also got some really nice pieces as far as vets go. Like I totally forgot right now until I looked at the box score. Bobby Wagner, huge, for their locker room. They've got Marshawn Lattimore in there too, who's got plenty of NFL experience. So, you've got the opportunity to lean on guys like that. And they just went out and balled, man. I I didn't realize Jared Goff also fumbled the ball and lost that. So he had 4 turnovers just himself alone. And then Jameson Williams threw a pick too. So 5 turnovers. That's going to be a hard game to win no matter who you're playing and, whether it's a home game or not. So props to the Commanders, man. Really, really, really impressive win for them. They've got another really tough game coming up here against the Eagles. But, hey, man, if they can beat the Lions in Detroit and make the Lions look that bad, you just never know. Let's dive into Eagles-Rams. Did you get a chance to watch any of that?
Yeah, so the Los Angeles Rams and Eagles game was interesting. Snowy conditions obviously makes it tough for a team like the Rams who come from Los Angeles and playing in nice weather to have to go to a place like Philly where not only the fans are nuts, but dealing with all the snow and stuff too is a little crazy. But I mean, really, I think the key to that game was Saquon Barkley just was the difference maker. Touchdown runs of 78 and 62 yards, had 205 yards total on the ground, and then those 2 touchdowns. It just felt like he ripped off a big run whenever the Rams were making some noise and trying to make it a little bit of a comeback there. But Philly held on, and Jalen Hurts looks okay. So I guess that's about all you can ask for Philly. But I really just feel like Saquon Barkley kind of just grinded down the Rams and propelled the Eagles to victory.
Yeah, the Jalen Hurts this season, I mean, it's kind of an interesting story. The further and further they go, the less and less confident I am in him. But, when you've got a guy like Saquon, I think no matter what, you're going to be in the game. And I think I said something along the lines last week where he was going to have a stat line very similar to Derrick Henry the week before, and I think he actually had more yards and the same amount of touchdowns. Just insane game for him. And honestly, like if it was a closer game, I think they would have just kept feeding him, and he probably would have ran for 300 yards. So yeah, I mean, it's just the same old storyline with the Eagles all season. Saquon is just carrying that team. Jalen Hurts is being just about as good as he needs to be, and once in a while the Philly defense makes a really big stop and do what they need to do on their end. Let's dive into. I didn't get to watch any of this, unfortunately. I was bartending, but the game of the year, Sean, I'm going to let you take the reins on here because all I was able to see was the box score. I don't know if this game was as close as it seems on the box score and kind of like what the momentum shift was like, but how was the Ravens versus the Bills game?
It was a good game. Pretty fluky for the Ravens early on. Lamar Jackson had an interception, and then Mark Andrews fumbled as well, which are 2 things that didn't happen very much this year. And the Bills just kind of, they were kind of just chugging along, and I don't even know if they ever trailed, maybe initially, but they just kind of kept chipping away and were eventually able to hold off Lamar and got lucky with the drop by Mark Andrews at the end of that game. That was right there for him. So they were benefit of that a little bit, but I mean the Bills, they were able to pull it off without Josh Allen having to do like anything crazy. I mean, he ran in 2 touchdowns, but besides that, he didn't throw for any touchdowns. He just threw for 127 yards. So, they were just kind of efficient and not needing Josh Allen to play hero ball, which is good, so he can save some of his energy and stuff for the big game this weekend when they head to Kansas City.
Yeah, I mean, it's if you look at like the receivers that were available for this game, it's kind of interesting. Both quarterbacks spread the ball out pretty well. Isaiah Likely and Rashad Bateman for the Ravens both had 4 receptions. Mark Andrews with 5 would have had 6. Bears legend Anthony Miller had 1 16-yard reception. And then Buffalo side, you got Khalil Shakir, who's been a really nice piece for them. Mac Hollins, Dalton Kincaid, they each had 1. Curtis Samuel had 2. Keon Coleman only had 1 reception, and Amari Cooper had none. So both quarterbacks just spreading the ball out a lot. And, when you have weather like that, you kind of need to just hit whoever's open. You can't really hit guys in stride quite as much as you'd normally like to, but Yeah, I wish I was able to watch that one because it was one I was really excited about. Let's talk about the conference championship preview here. So we're going to have, I'm going to pull up the Commanders and Eagles is going to be the first game, and Bills and Chiefs is going to be the second. I guess we can throw some predictions on this too while we're here. Let's start with the first one. Commanders and Eagles. What are you looking for in this game, and who are you picking?
I'm taking the Eagles. I think a big part of that is they are at home, which is crazy to say because Washington just came off of a road win in Detroit. But I feel like Philly's a pretty solid team. These teams are familiar with each other, obviously being in the same division. I'm going to look at something here because I might change my answer, but I don't think I need to.
The weather?
Nope, I'm good. They split the season series. I was going to say if Philly won both, I would take Washington just because I feel like you can't beat the same team 3 times. But I like Philly in this game. I think Philly is one of the, if not the biggest Super Bowl favorite at this point. So rolling with the better team overall, even though Washington's playing great. But I feel like their magic's just going to come to an end, and Philly's just going to keep doing their thing. And Barkley should have a pretty good day against the Commanders' defense. So I think he'll be able to be an X factor again, and I think ultimately the Eagles win.
I like that pick. I'll make things interesting. I'll pick the Commanders here. Now, again, just like you said last week, they're going to have a near perfect game to beat the Eagles, and even maybe more so than against the Lions. But I also don't trust Jalen Hurts a ton, and he's had just an okay type of season. Again, they still have Saquon. They can do some damage, but I'll take the Commanders. I'll have some fun with it, and I'll pull the Commanders here. Bills and Chiefs. So the spread is 2. Kansas City is giving 2 to Buffalo. The game is in Kansas City, and the Chiefs are 8-0 at home this year. Who do you have?
I got Buffalo, and my reason for this is when you look at superstars in the NFL, especially at the quarterback position, they always get their opportunity. Or I should say not always, most of the times get their opportunity. I think Josh Allen is way too good to never be able to play in a Super Bowl. And I think where we're getting at right here is we're kind of seeing a shift where the Bills are kind of getting maybe a little bit better and a little bit better as the years have gone on, where Kansas City's starting to teeter off a little bit. Granted, they're still really good. It would not be shocking if Kansas City won this game. But I think Josh Allen is really going to take this one personally. I think he's going to go out there and he's going to have one of those games where he rushes for 2 touchdowns, throws for 2 or 3 more, and he's going to pretty much just will Buffalo to victory. So I think just, them looking solid. I mean, they played earlier this season, and Buffalo knocked them off when Kansas City was still undefeated at the time. Playoffs are a completely different sport, but I think Josh Allen's going to be huge in this one, and and I'm not saying he's going to blow out the Chiefs at all. I think it'll be a close game. I think it'll be a great game, but I think Josh Allen's going to do some stuff that's really going to push Buffalo to the finish line here and get them the opportunity to be back in the Super Bowl.
I'm taking Buffalo too. I just think it's time. I mean, Pat Mahomes has beat Josh Allen so many times in this exact situation. Conference championship to make the Super Bowl. I feel like this is the same storyline almost every year. Bills and Chiefs. I think it was the Ravens one time. But I just think Josh Allen is having the type of year where it's hard to pick against him. Whether it's with his legs or with his arm, like he's doing everything on the field. And no matter what, I mean, they're 13-4 this year. I don't know if one of those losses was a fluke loss at the end of the year. It could have been. But I'm going to ride with Josh Allen, and I'm going to pick the Bills. So my Super Bowl is going to be Bills Commanders. You've got Bills Eagles. Either way, that's kind of a win-win. I like the matchup either way. So that's what we've got as far as the conference championships and Super Bowl matchup go. Is there anything you want to add, Sean, before we dive into all of the head coaching carousel?
No.
Okay. Let's do that. So head coaching carousel. we are going to save the Ben Johnson stuff for the Chicago side of this podcast. So if you're wondering why we're not starting there, that's why. So Jets, just as of today, Wednesday, January 22nd, have officially decided to hire Detroit Lions defensive coordinator Aaron Glenn to be their next head coach before even making a GM hire. Kind of a interesting way to operate business here. Sean, what do you like it? Do you think it's kind of a boneheaded move? What are your thoughts?
I mean, it's the Jets, so you can't rule anything
fair.
out. But I'm sure they probably have an idea who their GM's going to be. They've been in this process with the GM for quite a bit of time now, so I'm sure like even Glenn was looped in, like, hey, this is probably who you're going to work with. A lot of people are saying, I believe his name's Lance Newark. Yep. He might be the guy there. He's worked in Detroit before, so obviously he would be familiar with Glenn. So that would be a seamless transition for both of them. But still a good coaching hire for the Jets. One of the more popular candidates on this coaching cycle. I believe it was Ben Johnson, or I think it was Ben Johnson recently in a press conference, just basically applauded Aaron Glenn and said he's one of the most ready candidates to be a head coach that I've ever seen, and basically just giving him his flowers before he gets the opportunity to do that. So it should be a good hire for the Jets. Defense should be back. Defense should be looking good again. They got some pieces on that side of the ball. It's just going to be about who they get at quarterback, what they do there, and that'll kind of be their path to see just how good they can be in a hurry with Glenn, or if it's going to take some time.
Maybe I'm just scarred from previous Bears head coaching candidates, but like the defensive guys just scare me, dude. Like I'm sure Aaron Glenn will be a great coach, and I'll bite my tongue and look back at this and laugh, but like I'm not really excited for the Jets with this hire. I mean, I can't really give you a name that would want to go to New York and somebody that they could hire that'd be better, because Ben Johnson obviously didn't want to go there, but just I don't know. I don't really get too excited about Aaron Glenn in New York. I think they'll be looking for another head coach in a couple of years, but I'll probably be wrong, and he'll probably be coach of the year in 2 years. Raiders, man, they got fucked with the Ben Johnson stuff. Obviously, a lot of people were skeptical that Ben Johnson's agent was creating smoke about the Raiders. It's becoming more and more obvious that was definitely the case, because Ben Johnson talks about how he wanted to be in Chicago. So they started with hiring their GM now. They hired John Spytek. He was last an assistant general manager with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers the year before that, 2 years before that. He was the vice president of player personnel for the Bucs. And then for the 4 years before that, he was the director of player personnel. And he's been a scout. He's been director of college scouting. He was an intern for the Eagles back in 2005, an intern for the Lions back in 2004. So he's been around the game for a while. It's a name, honestly, I think it's a pretty solid hire by the Raiders, but what do you think?
I don't have much to report other than there was a previous working relationship when Brady was in Tampa Bay, so I'm guessing he was the driver behind this move.
Yeah, he was, it looks like, 2-time Super Bowl champion, Super Bowl 50, and then I don't know what LV means, but Super Bowl LV, whatever year that is. So, yeah, we'll see. I mean, the Raiders don't have a great history either, so this guy could end up being complete trash, but based on his resume and how many years he's already spent in the league, I think he could be a nice hire, but what do I know? All right, Sean, hands down, probably the most interesting news that came out today, and this is saying a lot because Ben Johnson's press conference was today. Jaguars and their approach with Trent Baalke is, dude, it's just mind-blowing. Like, I've been pissed off a lot as a Bears fan, a lot. But if I was a Jaguars fan, I think I would be livid today. So for those of you who haven't been paying attention, Trent Trent Baalke, a lot of head coaches don't want to go and work under Trent Baalke. And this has been an issue all off season. I'm sure it's been an issue in previous off seasons. They don't want to work for this guy. And for whatever reason, I forget the name of the owner for the Jags. It's like Khan, yeah. Khan just refused to fire him. And we don't really know why. But finally today, after losing out on a handful of coaches and being down to God knows what, because Cohen's going to go back to Tampa Bay as their offensive coordinator, Trent Baalke was just fired today. And this is interesting because they were committed to retaining him this offseason. And it seems like, based on the fact that they've gotten a ton of terrible feedback, they finally decided to let him go.
It's organizational malpractice, to be completely honest with you. I think if Liam Cohen didn't turn, it's Wednesday as we're recording this, if Liam Cohen didn't turn them down, I think he'd probably stick around. Baalke, that is, just because I feel like that really raised some red flags for Jaguars ownership, even though they should have known, it wasn't going to be a widely applauded move by keeping him. It was very well known as just someone who is an outsider and is not in front offices, that people don't like Trent Baalke. So the fact that they brought him back, that was kind of shocking. Coaching candidates took note of that, made it less appealing. And now they're sitting here seeming like they had a good opportunity to hire Liam Cohen, which would have been a great hire, but now all of a sudden he doesn't want it. And they were in the mix for Ben Johnson. GM was an issue, supposedly, with him wanting to take that job or not. They lost out on him. Now they fire their GM. Like, it just doesn't make sense. I know it's hard because they have Trevor Lawrence under contract. You got to make the most out of every year and get the most out of that contract before you are really screwed. But at this rate, like, they should just hire an interim coach and start over again, but they're not going to do that. So just an absolute organizational malpractice and horribly mismanaged this coaching cycle by by doing something like this with a lot of damn good coaching candidates out there. So just I think today you can say that this might be the worst organization in the NFL, and that says a lot.
Yeah.
But I think based off this move today, like, even as bad as the Bears have been in years past, and as shitty as our front office and ownership has been in years past, like, I don't recall them doing something like this. Now, don't get me wrong, was bringing Eberflus back for this year the wrong move, and everyone knew it was going to be 100%. But they didn't go back and be like, well, you know what, actually, we're just going to fire Eberflus and then we'll go hire someone else. It's just crazy. I would put my head through drywall today if I were a Jaguars fan.
Even a player, dude. Like, imagine trying to represent this team. You know what I mean? Like, that'd be flat out fucking embarrassing. Honestly, I was shocked when I saw that news come through. I was just, why now? You know what I mean? And I think as a Bears fan, the closest thing we can relate to is when Eberflus was, designated to speak to the media, and then 2 hours later he was fired. That's like our worst version of it, but this is hands down way worse. So, Sean, we've got 4 openings right now. Jaguars, Raiders, Saints, and Cowboys. Do you want me to start? I think we'll predict what coaches we think will land at what cities, or how do you want to do this?
Yeah, that's what we're going to do, pal.
You want me to start?
Yeah, you can go ahead and start. I don't care.
Okay. Jaguars is the hardest one, dude. Like, I don't know who's going to want this fucking job.
There's only one man for the job.
Man.
Robert Saleh.
Yeah, I guess, but I could see like Mike Kafka, maybe.
No one else is really in the mix with Saleh. And I think he wants to be a head coach again.
Go ahead and have it then, man. So I guess it'll be Saleh. I would have said Kafka just because he's been interviewing for a while and he can't get a job to save his life. But Next one's rate. Go ahead.
I was gonna say they could bring him in and replicate the Giants' offense. They would love to do that.
Yeah. Let's talk about Raiders. So for the Raiders, I think it'll be Pete Carroll.
Should we get our guest picker?
Yeah, Paul. Who do you have picking? Who do you have for the Raiders head coach?
He doesn't know Ben Johnson signed yet. He's still hoping. I also think they're gonna go with Pete Carroll too. It just seems like it could happen, and I can just already see him in Raiders colors and stuff.
Honestly, I think it'd be a pretty fun hire for them for like everything that transpired. It's easy for me to say that, right? Because I got the guy I wanted. But like all things considered, I think Pete Carroll would be a nice hire for the Raiders. Saints, I think we're going to be on the same page here. I think it's Mike McCarthy. I don't really think any other person is going to be considered.
Yeah, I'm trying to think who else they've talked to. I know they really like Darren Glenn.
Yep.
Yeah, I could see that.
Maybe Brian Flores.
Maybe Kellen Moore.
You got Todd Monken too.
I don't think he's getting interviews besides the Bears. You got Joe Brady. That's interesting because he coached at LSU, obviously. So there could be some legs there, but I don't think they're going to wait that long. So that would lead me to believe it would be Mike McCarthy.
Cowboys. I don't know if they've interviewed him yet, but for some reason this name just screams like Dallas Cowboys coach. I'm going to say Brian Flores.
They got their offensive coordinator, Brian Schottenheimer.
Yeah.
Seems like they like him a lot, so I'm going to go with him.
Who would you say other than that? Because I know he had a second interview today. You don't think Drew Petzing's going to land the job, bro?
I think Dallas could sneak, not like sneakily, but like quietly. I think they would love to hire like Pete Carroll. Too.
Yeah, I could see that.
I think that screams like Jerry Jones move. I was listening to a podcast from a Cowboys writer or something like that where he was talking, because I was mentally preparing for Mike McCarthy, so I was learning more about him and doing some research, and he was talking about the Cowboys search, and he thinks that Jerry Jones is gonna be more likely to swing towards like an older candidate, but we'll see.
Yeah, I mean it's hard to say what the hell Jerry's going to do anymore. He's just kind of a loose cannon at this point in his life. All right, then last topic before we dive into Chicago things, because Chicago things again, it's going to include the Ben Johnson talk. So Dodgers fooled me and Sean both. Signed Roki Sasaki to a somewhere around $6 million deal, and then turn around to sign arguably the best reliever, Tanner Scott, to a $70+ million deal. This kind of just feels like, dude, I feel like I'm playing backyard baseball, and you know how you just get to pick like the best players on your team? It kind of feels like that's how the Dodgers are approaching this offseason. They're like, we'll take you, we'll take you, we'll take you, we'll defer all this money and not worry about it.
Mm-hmm. I might sound like an old head here, but I 100% think that the Dodgers are ruining baseball. And I think they are playing a game that could turn around and bite the rest of the MLB in the near future. I think they are maybe going to force the commissioner's hand to look at doing like a salary cap or something along those lines, and that's probably going to lead to a lockout when they do the next collective bargaining agreement, because there's no way those negotiations are going to be civil and they're going to be just swimmingly moving along. So I absolutely hate everything that the Dodgers are doing. I think a lot of it goes back to that little snake Shohei Ohtani and his stupid deferred contract, and giving them the ability to do something like this. Like, something's got to be done. And listen, this is coming from a White Sox fan. We have no fucking chance of winning anything in the next probably 10 years.
No, it doesn't concern us.
No, but it still really pisses me off. Like, I couldn't imagine being a fan of a contending team, or to look at it from like this perspective too, being the fucking Diamondbacks, where you're going out, you're spending money on Corbin Burns. You have a great team, but you're probably going to finish third in your division, and you're never going to compete for, be able to really compete with the Dodgers. Like, it is just, it's awful that they're just able to run off and sign all these guys. And I know they're doing like anyone can do it, and people are going to be like, oh, there's just not enough teams that aren't there's too many teams that aren't trying. But like at the same time, like, there's no way in hell any team should be able to employ the amount of people that they do and how much money they have tied into them and how much money they're deferring to these guys. Like, it's just ridiculous. And I personally think it is terrible for the sport. And I just wish something could be done, but with something being done is going to lead to a lot of other issues. And like I said, I feel like it's going to lead to a lockout when they do the next CBA in a couple of years. But it's just pathetic. I hate, and like I said, no dog in the fight at all. Not even close to being able to be. I don't even think the White Sox are like Dominican Summer League compared to the Dodgers in terms of different leagues that we're playing in. But it's just disappointing that this is what it's gotten to. And it's not like they're struggling to win the World Series. They just fucking won the World Series last year.
Dude, imagine how different the vibes are going to be at spring training. So for those of you that don't know, the Dodgers and the White Sox share the same spring training facility. And one team just had the worst record in baseball history. The other team won the World Series and is signing fucking everybody this offseason. It's going to be two polar different stories in spring training. Like, the vibes are going to be so different. It's going to be pretty wild.
Yeah, but we have Will Venable.
I mean, like, granted, yes, I actually do like that move, but like our roster.
So do I. I honestly, there's been so much other stuff going on, most notably with the Bears, that like I legitimately had like an oh shit moment today where I was like, wait, White Sox got a new manager too, and he's actually pretty good. Wow, things are actually okay right now.
Yeah. I mean, all things considered, I do like that move, but the roster's kind of shit, so it doesn't really matter too much right now. Yeah, man, I think we're definitely headed towards a lockout. I don't really see any other way of this all panning out. It's not like the Dodgers are going to have, you know, all of these expensive ass contracts. Like, let's say one or two of them don't work out. These aren't tradable contracts. You know what I mean? Like,
oh, they'll trade them.
Not many other organizations are going to be able to afford the type of money that they're throwing out. So it's kind of bad for baseball. All you can do is hope that something happens, or, you know, you don't want to see guys get injured, but like, I don't know, it's going to be like such a predictable season this season if this is how it's going to go.
Yeah, they got Blake Snell earlier this offseason. They got Sasaki, and granted, his spending was capped, so they're playing the game everyone else had to play there. And then they're like, oh, yeah, we got money now. Let's go sign Tanner Scott. And then they ended up signing Kirby Yates, too, who granted is probably not going to command much money, but still a good pitcher. It's just, I hate it. I hate it so much. I hope the Dodgers, and it's impossible, it will not happen, but I hope they never win a baseball game again.
I'm gonna confidently say I don't think that'll happen. But
that prediction will probably be wrong on opening day.
And if not, the next day.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's dive into Chicago stuff, because I think that we have a lot we want to talk about. We're gonna shift the vibes here a little bit. Bears hire Ben Johnson. It is official. He signed his contract. I've heard 6 years, $15 million a year. I've heard $13 million a year. Either way, a lot of money for the Bears to throw out for a coach. What do you think? Did you watch the press conference? What are your takeaways? Like, how do you think it went?
I listened to it a little bit. Wasn't like actively watching or listening, but I think obviously Ben Johnson's he's been a hot candidate for a couple years here. People have had their eye on him as a head coach candidate for teams that have been on the market, not just this year, but last year too. This year specifically, I don't know. I don't really remember last year's cycle that much, but I know this year for certain you can say that Ben Johnson was the number one candidate on the market. And I think the most impressive thing was the fact that the Bears actually landed him. It was like, obviously we knew we would be in the mix. We'd be able to talk to him. We have intriguing things. The Bears have intriguing things that they can offer in terms of current roster, Caleb Williams, money to spend. But it's also the Bears. There's a lot of organizational negligence there. There's a recent history of losing. Team had a 10-game losing streak this past season. Looked lost. Locker room was lost. A lot of these guys are coming back. So it is, while it's appealing for a lot of reasons, there's also a lot to not like about taking on this situation, especially for a guy who is a first-year head coach. This could be his only head coaching opportunity. I hope it is, and I hope it works out to where like he's just the Bears guy forever. But there's obviously always the risk that it could fail too. So it's risky for Ben Johnson to take this job. But we heard it from him. I don't know if he was just saying it because he's here and it's done, but he wanted the job. He wanted the job really bad. He apparently made that evident in his first and only interview that we know of. I don't know if they talked again.
That was it.
But I thought that was very interesting and very, I guess, like, warming to hear that he really wanted this job, because I think he can be a great coach. So the fact that he knows what he's up against, and he said as much, like, this is not going to be easy, this is going to be a lot of work, I think is cool, and I think is going to set him up for success. Now, I think his press conference went really well today. I thought he had a lot of good things to say. He was preaching winning immediately. I don't know if that's going to happen. Bears have a tough schedule this upcoming season, so they'll have a lot will have to go right for them to be able to immediately win. But crazier things have happened. I mean, look at what Washington's doing. Granted, Campbell's different. He's been a coach before. Like, he knows how to build locker rooms and stuff like that. But I mean, you get an offensive mind like Ben Johnson in the Bears organization, with Caleb Williams, like, hey, that is a good recipe for success too. I just do think it's going to take a little bit longer than maybe he anticipates. But overall, I'm hopeful. I think it's pretty cool to see how applauded the Bears are for being able to pull this off nationally. A lot of the times we're in the national media, it's for not so good stuff. So nice for a change for people to be like, hey, the Bears did the right thing. Will it work out? We'll see. But, at least they opened up the checkbook. They went out and they got the best candidate on the market. I don't know how many times you can say the Bears have been able to do that before.
Yeah, and I think to paint the picture for people, so now he wasn't a head coach, but Shane Waldron was hired as our offensive coordinator. And Jackson Smith and Jigma was on an interview, and they asked him about Shane Waldron, and his response was good luck. The reason I bring this up is because on the St. Brown podcast, Amon-Ra talks about Ben Johnson and his decision to go to the Bears, and you can tell he's really upset. You can tell he didn't love the move. He didn't love losing Ben Johnson. He actually told Ben Johnson, he goes, I'm going to fuck you up. And Ben Johnson came back and said, no, I'm going to fuck you up. So I love hearing that from Ben Johnson. And just like, he brings this like fiery passion when he talks, which I think is really cool.
Yeah.
One thing I saw on Twitter, which resonated with me a lot with this whole Ben Johnson hire, and like there's years and years and years of us having bad coaches that leads up to this, is Ben Johnson is saying that the offense he's going to build in Chicago will be nothing similar to Detroit. He's going to rip it down to the studs, and we're going to build it from there. He's not just going to bring in a playbook, throw it down, and expect it to work. So the reason I love this is because it tells me the Bears aren't just going to force a scheme onto players, i.e. Caleb Williams. He's going to build it from the ground up based on the roster that he has and decide on what the offense looks like from there. The other thing I noted, 2 more points. These are actually really, really interesting. I don't know if you heard about any of these today, but George McCaskey had said in an interview that when they sat down with Zoom, the first thing that came out of Ben Johnson's mouth was, I want this job. And as soon as the meeting was done, the last thing that came out of Ben Johnson's mouth was, did I tell you I want this job? So that's probably what Sean was referring to when he said, like, you could tell Ben Johnson really wanted it. along with just, seeing the video of him yesterday at Hallis Hall. And then finally, something really interesting, and I actually found the picture of it. Somebody saw Kevin Warren at a restaurant. Did you hear about this?
No, but you bringing the word picture up reminded me of something. I'll mention it after.
I'll flash it. I'll flash it to the camera when it's appropriate here. So somebody saw Kevin Warren at a restaurant. I don't remember which one it was, and they had told the bartender. They said, "Hey, please send him whatever he's drinking, and I want you to put a note that says, Kevin, please hire Ben." And so they sent Kevin Warren a drink with that note that says, "Please hire Ben." And this is the note that Kevin Warren received at the restaurant. And I guess the message was received so well that Kevin Warren actually returned the favor and sent them shots. So I think this was like a day or two before Ben Johnson was officially hired as coach, but just kind of cool to see some behind the scenes stuff because a lot of times you don't get to hear stories like this. So Ben Johnson as a coach, I'm fucking thrilled. I don't really need to add anything here. Like literally everybody that has a voice in the media right now is saying how good of a hire this is for the Bears. They finally spent some money. They got the right guy. Time will tell, but as far as where things stand right now, I absolutely love the move.
Yeah, a couple things I wanted to add here. Number one is I was really glad to see the reaction from Caleb Williams. He had an interview where he said that he let out a loud yell and a scream of excitement when he heard that Ben was his going to be his head coach, which is great because obviously the guy went through a lot of shit in his rookie year between multiple head coaches, 3 different offensive coordinators, one of the most sacks in a season in NFL history. Enough to make you want to be like, I don't know if I want to play here anymore. So for the Bears to be able to land a guy that gives him a lot of excitement, in the word Caleb Williams said, gives me so much clarity. Like, it's really good to hear things like that, to be able to be like, hey, Caleb, like, you're our guy. Like, this really is about you. Like, we have you in mind when we do these things. So loved hearing that, and loved hearing Caleb mention that and saying the word clarity specifically. I thought was awesome. Other thing I wanted to bring up to you, I'll get to that in a little bit, but obviously the hire is exciting. It's great. Top candidate, prolific offensive mind. There is a chance that this might not work out. There's been a lot of offensive minds that have flamed out when they get to be head coaches, especially first-time head coaches. But based off the way Ben Johnson handled today and some of the things he talked about, made me think, like, everyone was like, oh, can he lead a locker room? I think he can do that, and I think we got a good opportunity to do something with him as a head coach. But time will tell. Now, for my big thing I wanted to tell you about, so I was watching a little bit of the press conference today. I could not get over the fact that he looks just like Fred Hoiberg.
Oh, dude, I get Chris Getz.
That too. Chris Getz too, but I was staring at him and I was like,
yeah,
this is Fred Hoiberg.
I can see both of them 100%.
He's got like Getz's build.
Yeah, and you don't really see it until he takes his hat off, right? Because when he's wearing his hat on the sidelines, you can't really tell. But when he takes his hat off,
with the hat on, I was going through it with the hat on and the smiling picture that the Bears posted. I thought he looked like Eberflus in that one.
yeah.
I was like, oh my gosh, I can't unsee him.
I noticed the same thing. It was interesting. Did you notice DJ Moore was there?
DJ Moore was there, Caleb was there, Cole Kmet was there, and Roma Dunze were there.
Okay, the reason I bring up DJ Moore specifically, there was a lot of backlash on his body language this season, right? I had seen on Twitter, I don't know the truth to this, but I had seen on Twitter, I don't know why someone would make it up, he actually left a family vacation to come to Chicago and meet Ben Johnson. If that's the truth, that's pretty fucking cool, given the season that they just had. That's pretty fucking cool for DJ Moore to literally leave his family vacation to come meet the new head coach. That tells you he's really excited about it too. And he tweeted out the little Sonic and Knuckles thing too. So obviously he's really excited. Caleb Williams, did you see his outfit that he was wearing?
Mm-hmm.
Dude, he's such a savage. So one of the reporters was like, tell us about your outfit, like, what's going on here. And he's like, said something along the lines of like, the last 12 months have been pretty wild. And he goes, that's why I have this outfit on. I want to look like I'm in the Matrix, like I'm Morpheus, because he was just dodging sacks all season. And I'm like, you are such a savage to pull something like that. But yeah, I mean, all around just really good vibes. He actually, I thought Ben Johnson seemed a little nervous in his presser, which I liked personally because
I didn't think he did.
I think the first like 5 minutes, I think he seemed pretty nervous, which I loved because to me that tells you how much this job means to him. So I'm happy. I think we'll see a lot this offseason. I think it's definitely going to shape how we approach spending money this offseason. And dude, I already teased it. I texted you and I was like, watch the Bears draft Ashton Genty the first round in the draft. And I've seen so many people say the same thing. I'm like, dude, that guy is literally, because he uses Jahmyr Gibbs so much. I'm like, Ashton Genty
ain't happening.
I wouldn't be shocked, man. So that's my
line. They'll get a running back late.
I think they're gonna get. I think they're definitely gonna try to get Trey Smith. He'd be huge for them. They're gonna have to just dump money, but I think he'll be a big name that they're gonna go after.
Speaking of, I learned today that him and Darnell Wright played together at Tennessee. So, Darnell, go get your boy. You're like the only guy I want back on the offensive line. So
yeah, no, literally.
Yeah.
Braxton Jones, you can be like a backup. All right, let's jump to some Bulls talk then.
Yeah,
we talked about this in the last podcast a little bit.
Whoa.
That coming back down. That Vooch was going to be the most likely trade candidate during the trade deadline, and the Bulls are dealing with a little bit of a losing streak before this Clippers win, of course. Do you think now with them, going on this losing streak, that they're going to unload more than just Vooch?
Yeah, I think they'll unload a little bit more. What that ends up being, I don't think is going to be significant. I think we're looking at like Torrey Craig's of the world getting moved. Vooch, I think, is getting moved for sure. I don't know how these negotiations are going or how these talks are going, but I don't know how Zach LaVine's going to be around. He's playing really good basketball, and he's been healthy this year. Like, unless the Bulls are asking for this, like the sun and the moon and the stars for him, I don't know how it's rumored that he's going to stick around and they're not going to find a trade partner for him. I don't know how. I don't think there's much more he can prove this year. Like, he's putting up 30 almost every night, it seems like. I think he had 40 the other night.
Dude, if Jimmy Butler can get traded, I don't know how Levine can't.
Yeah, like, just even if you want to get something for him, like, give the guy a chance to do something. I mean, he's a good player.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I don't think it's going to be a ton of pieces, but I do think that they'll move a little bit more than Vooch. I think maybe their hands being forced, which is crazy to say that because they shouldn't be – what they have now shouldn't be what they're trying to win with. Like, you want to talk about tearing things down to the studs, Bulls need to do that with their roster, minus like maybe 4 people.
Yeah, no, literally.
Matis Buzelis, Julian Phillips, because I like him.
Io.
Io, yeah, I'd probably keep Io.
Giddy.
I like Giddy a lot too, so I'm gonna go 5. My 5th's Adama Sanogo.
Yeah, hell yeah.
Just out of pure enjoyment of having him.
Hell yeah. Yeah.
Everyone else can get traded. Like Kobe White, I think it's like they should try to get something for him because he has not been good this year. And I think and he's on a fairly affordable deal. Like a lot of teams would be interested in him, but I think maybe last year we're kind of seeing what his ceiling is, and if that's his ceiling, like he's probably not someone you really want to build around.
Plus,
like he'd be an amazing like 6-man or like fourth best scorer on a team, but like to have him be like one of the primary scorers, I think is just not going to work.
Yeah, I mean, even just like a spark plug off the bench, right? Like Kobe White would be so sick for a playoff team to have that kind of spark plug off the bench. Here's my concern if they don't trade Zach LaVine this trade deadline. He's going to be 30 years old the next time we try and trade him. That's not great. And 29, not much of a difference, but like still, you're still under 30. I actually think here's a name that surfaced today, actually, that I think might have some steam to it. I heard about Lonzo Ball and the Lakers actually being interested in bringing him back. And if the Bulls can unload Lonzo Ball and the Lakers will take him on, I'm sure we'll probably have to pay some of his salary. I'm all for it. I don't know what we'll get in return. I think maybe like a second rounder right now. But if we can unload him and his $20 million that he's owed, I think that would be huge. You've got a guy like Talen Horton-Tucker who's been productive for us. I could see him getting some interest and honestly maybe also from the Lakers because he had some success there. But yeah, I just – they need to unload Zach. They obviously need to unload – are you looking at contracts?
Yeah, I'm trying to see because with the NBA contract matching, it's something that you kind of have to do. I'm looking at some of these contracts that the Lakers have, like Rui Hachimura. He makes $17 million. Lonzo makes 21. Like maybe that might be best case scenario. The Bulls get a player like him back plus a fill-in. Do you take Cam Reddish for about $2.5 million, or Jackson Hayes for $2.5 million, or Christian Wood for $3 million? Like. It'd be something like that. It wouldn't do much. I mean, maybe like Lonzo and a second-round pick for like a package like that. I don't know.
Yeah, it's hard to say. I mean, there's also like the trade exceptions, that you can look at too.
Gabe Vincent for $11 million.
Yeah, I know. I think Dorian Finney-Smith is somewhere
14 mil.
Yeah, I was gonna say I know he's somewhere in that neighborhood, but yeah, man, you got to get rid of LaVine. Vooch is 34 years old. You got to get rid of him. Patrick Williams, I would love to get rid of him, but no one's going to take him. He just got paid $90 million, and he doesn't do fucking shit. He's so inconsistent. He's known for his defense. Like, okay, cool.
Yeah.
We should have just kept Caruso.
He's got, like, no energy on the court. It's getting bad. He was playing pretty good before he got hurt, but you can only use that so much with him. I mean, he's hurt every year. I was kind of hopeful that maybe he would take a step forward with DeRozan gone this year, but he's a lost cause. I think you hope you get rid of him. I would try to get rid of him now and hope some team sees like, oh, we can fix him, or we can make it work. He's so talented. Because I think he's just. I mean. Besides playing good defense, he's pretty useless. And what's he making this year?
Dude, he hasn't even put up 20 million once, or 20 million. He hasn't even put up 20 points once in a single game this season.
Yeah, he's making 18 mil a year every year through 2028, 2029. So I would love to just let someone else to deal with him and think they can fix him and not be able to fix him.
Yeah, I would love to get rid of him, but I just don't know how that's going to happen ever. The Bulls kind of dug themselves in their own hole. All right, last team here. Different team in the same building. Blackhawks. Sean, what's going on with the Blackhawks?
Not a whole lot. Team has been playing a little bit better, I feel like. I'm just pulling up their schedule here. It's been a bit since they played. They got a tough schedule, though, I'll tell you that. Where are we at here? So, a couple games they had recently. They beat Vegas 5-3 in regulation. That was fun. Lost to the Hurricanes on Monday, 4-3 in overtime. They're scheduled to play the Lightning on Friday. They got the Wild on Sunday. Lightning after that. Hurricanes after that. Panthers after that. Oilers after that. So a lot of tough games coming up, but They've been a little bit more competitive. One thing that's been nice is Sorensen has put Frank Nazar, Tyler Bertuzzi, and Connor Bedard on the same line, and they've actually been playing really well together. I think it's been a few games where they've been together now, maybe two. And I think it's something that we should definitely continue to see moving forward, whether he decides to keep them together or not. I think just based off the early returns, like, yeah, heck yeah, let's roll it out and see what it looks like. Like, you might as well. Why not? So, but yeah, I mean, I don't know. Team still sucks. They're still flirting for the first overall pick. As of the other night, they
tied with the
second,
Sharks,
actually. So now we're tied. Okay.
Yeah.
But it's been a little bit more enjoyable watching them.
They are tied with the Sharks for the worst. We'll just call it like point record in the NHL. They have 34 points on the season. Buffalo is the next worst team at 41. So a decently sized difference there from worst to second worst. So yeah, I haven't really watched too many Blackhawks games this season. I mean, I pay attention to it on Twitter, but I hate to say it, man. I'm kind of just like a Blackhawks bandwagon fan. I'll be the first to admit it. Like, when they're doing well, I'll watch them, but right now they don't take priority. Other shitty teams in Chicago take priority, and it's a lose-lose here. But it seems like, I know, let's say a month ago, a lot of people were frustrated with Connor Bedard and kind of where he was at this year. It seems like he's starting to put together some better performances game over game ever since, we had that conversation. Because I know you talked about it probably 3 or 4 weeks ago, where a lot of people were just like stressed out and frustrated with Bedard.
Yeah, no, he's been playing a lot better. Just pulling up his stats here. Since December 14th, he's had 5 total games where he hasn't registered a point.
Okay.
So over a month ago.
Yeah.
On the season, he's got 47 games played, 13 goals, 28 assists, 41 points. So he had quite a bit of a drought early on this year, but since then, like, he's kind of getting almost back to a point per game player as a 19-year-old in the NHL. So that's pretty damn good. So he's played in 115 games with the Blackhawks, has 102 points. I'll fucking take that. I don't know why people are freaking out.
Yeah. Also, Sean, I put together a successful Lonzo Ball trade. You ready for this? It's going to be Lonzo Ball and Talen Horton-Tucker going to the Lakers. And in return, we get Dorian Finney-Smith and Jared Vanderbilt.
All right.
And the trade is successful. So that's
Lakers getting back 2 guys they had before.
Yeah. And Bulls getting players that have no business in their future. All right, guys. Well, that's it for tonight's episode. We obviously had a lot to talk about with the Ben Johnson stuff and a lot of coach carousel movement going on right now that will continue. I'm sure we'll have more in next week's episode, as well as a idea of what the Super Bowl matchup is. So stay tuned. We'll be back next week. And until then, you guys take care. Stay warm. I know it's cold in a lot of places. There's literally snow in New Orleans, which hasn't happened in God knows how long. So everyone stay warm, Sean especially. Take care, y'all.